Here's how to replace the batteries for a TI3000. First, you want to remove screws from the front faceplate. Not the top two. You want to remove the other four, starting with the middle two, then the bottom two. You want to use a 1/16 hex screwdriver to do this. Peel off the rubber stopper or bracket cover on the back and remove the four screws holding the backplate on, starting with the top two, then the bottom two. Then remove the four screws holding on the support bar in the middle. Don't pull the back plate off too quickly. The fan is still connected. Disconnect the wire by clicking the connector. Then set the back plate aside. Place some wooden blocks next to the GPU. Lift the top half of the GPU by tilting the hind end first. Then turn the top half upside down and rest it on top of the wheel and wooden block. Don't let the cases touch. It could cause unwanted static shock. Use a 10mm socket wrench to disconnect battery wires from the batteries, starting at the back and working your way to the front. Static shock warning. Make sure the wrench is not touching the case. Make sure positive and negative wires do not touch each other or the case. Use a 25 ohm resistor to discharge the two front wires. You do not want a charge in your capacitor while working on the unit. Press push to test button to discharge the push to test board. Set the top half of the GPU aside. There are 5 screws and coupling nuts holding the batteries in place. You want to start by loosening the middle one and working your way out. Note, start by loosening screws. You do not want the battery strap to bow. It may be difficult to loosen screws between batteries. The coupling nut will want to rotate with the screw if a lot of Loctite was used on it. You will have to hold it in place with a flathead screwdriver. The front end screw has silicone on it for electrical insulation. You will have to remove it before you can unscrew it. Besides that, the end screws are easier to loosen because you can use a wrench to hold the coupling nuts in place. Then set the battery strap aside. Remove the jumper bars or bus bars connecting batteries with a 10mm socket wrench. Once this is done, you can pull out the old batteries. Now you can put in new batteries. Make sure the OCV numbers on the new batteries match and place them in. Then put the battery strap back on. Line up the middle screw and its bolt and tighten it a little, not all the way. In the same order that they were removed, reconnect all of the screws and tighten them. Remember, the middle screw and the screw on the hind end have flat tops for clearance purposes. Make sure to replace the silicone you removed from the front bolt. Place the jumper bars or bus bars back on the batteries. The half used for positive has a longer hole and a washer. They should be screwed in by hand and then tightened with a torque wrench to 85 inch-pounds. While reconnecting the wires, you will need to either tape them up or have someone hold them for you. Reconnect the first positive wire and then tighten it with a torque wrench to 85 inch-pounds. After the first positive wire is on, you don't want sparks when you go to put on the negative wire. So you will discharge the circuit with a 25 ohm resistor by placing one lead on the negative wire and one on the negative battery terminal. Make sure you reconnect the wire immediately after you discharge the circuit. Then you reconnect the wires in the reverse order that you disconnected them in. If you're not sure which wire went where, front positive is an 8-inch wire. The next two are 8.5 inches, and the hindmost negative is 27 inches. You do not need to discharge the next two wires. Plug in the rear fan and temporarily prop the hind panel back on with one screw. Press the push to test button and see if the fan moves. This is to make sure the push to test board still works. Now you're ready to put the unit back together. Unscrew and disconnect the back plate. Turn the top half over. Before you put it back on, you want to use a soft mallet to tap the battery's wire connections. You don't want to get them caught between the two halves of the case when you close it. You can make sure you're clear with a small piece of plastic. Ease the top half on, but not all the way. Screw the faceplate screws back onto the front faceplate, starting with the top two, then the bottom two. Before sliding the top half on all the way, you want to make sure the battery cables are not being pinched by anything. Slide the top half on and secure it in place with a clamp. You need to check for any shorts. Hook up your voltmeter's negative wire to the AC ground. Attach the positive wire to each of the DC connections. The voltmeter should read 0 volts for each of them. Now put the back plate back on. Connect the fan. Then screw the back plate on in the same order you removed screws. Press the push to test button. It should work. If it does not, you will have to open the GPU back up and troubleshoot.